Yes, if you look at the names of people we revere as modern directors, the Spielberg, the Lucas, the Coppola, the De Palma, and on, all these people are film school graduates. It's changed the face of film, no question.
Oh, no question about it. I think it's...
So we went on your art website and found your biography where you're quoted saying, "My journey towards building my character is formed through culture, experiences, and my passion for sports and arts." How would you say boxing and art has formed the character that you are today?
Sure. I was born in Washington, D.C., and I moved to Saudi Arabia shortly after. I've lived there for the majority of my life. My mother's from the Philippines, my father's from Saudi Arabia. So I started boxing at a young age, and it started off in Saudi Arabia when I attended a class in boxing. And ever since, I just felt in love with it, you know, the sense of accomplishment once you complete the class, the coaching staff. It really kept me motivated and brought me to go back. My training typically is 6 times per week. I do my boxing and my strength and conditioning. And I attend boxing classes at the gym. We have a good group, a good coach who is always motivating us. And the class consists of heavy bag work, mitt work, weight training, and running. Then we finish the class with abs. And it's just a great atmosphere and culture that we experience. I just find that boxing is just a fun way to get, you know, a healthy workout in. Boxing really teaches us how to overcome obstacles and adversity. And I found that with perseverance and persistence, it becomes incredibly rewarding. So it's not because of it's a hard workout, let's say. It's more of enjoying the process and being around certain people that makes it worthwhile. So I started painting at a very young age, and art was just a way to allow me to explore my imagination. And it was a way that I could share my multicultural background with these two identities, you know, the Philippines having the tropical climate, the islands, and the mountainous deserts of Saudi Arabia. really were implemented in my art, and I strive to perfect it and produce an overall composition with those two cultures. I found love with many different artists of old, specifically Claude Monet, Henry Rousseau, and Paul Cézanne. I love to paint from inspiration from life and nature, and I just admire the importance of embracing the world that surrounds us. I think that's very important. I just think about today, we're surrounded by distractions, noise, chaos. So for me, when I pursue these activities, my mind, reflects upon ideas, concepts, perspectives, and it just revolves around my life. And I found something that will just give me peace, insight, give me challenges that filter out these negative distractions of society today. These two seemingly different subjects are quite similar. I strongly believe that sports and art allow us to express ourselves, physically, emotionally, intellectually, and allow us to connect with each other, around the world, crossing borders, cultures, languages and barriers. So it really is important to me. There's two elements that I cherish the most, and that's integrity and diversity. And I aim to promote these features together while inspiring my peers, especially ones that come from different backgrounds. And just by having Arab and Filipino origins, it allowed me to obtain a mix of cultures and experiences and beliefs. And my determination to accomplish and strengthen myself towards my character are reflected upon my opportunities with boxing and art, and allowed me to value an intense, appreciation and motivated approach to improvements. And these two disciplines truly allowed me to embrace this concept. And I just believe that every day we should reach out and touch someone. It's such a small but important factor that we can do every day. Just allowing yourself to give a warm hug, say hi, smile, or just like a friendly pat on the back to encourage them.
By 2050, the population of Africa is expected to double. Due to climate change, millions of people are being displaced across the continent and being forced to move into African megacities. Without proper governance and state leadership, the African continent could be the next victim of a great humanitarian disaster. As the fastest urbanizing continent, how can African cities best prepare for mass climate migration? By the year 2050, it is forecasted that more than 200 million people will become displaced due to the effects of climate change, creating migration hotspots all over the world. Undoubtedly, these conditions are bound to worsen over time. The most vulnerable regions appear to be Latin America, Northern and Sub-Saharan Africa, Eastern Europe, East Asia, and the Pacific Islands. It is now only the question of how the global community can minimize the effects of climate change in those regions. The African continent seems to be a specific case in the context of climate migration, both because of its circulatory migration patterns and the particular attachment that many citizens have with their native communities. According to a report published by AP News this year, it is predicted that 86 million migrants will move out of rural Africa due to crop failure and flooding, forcing millions into developing urban communities. Without a long-term urbanization plan, many fear that these cities are set up for failure. With these upcoming dynamics, a critical question seems to be, how is the case of climate migration in Africa unique from other vulnerable regions? One of the factors that separates the African continent apart from any other region is the type of migration patterns.
A lot of people from Zambia, Zimbabwe, they come over to Johannesburg just to buy clothing, and then they take the clothing back on a bus and they retail it in their domestic countries.
Circulatory migration, or intra-African migration, is deeply rooted in African culture, as there is an incredible sense of connection embedded between states. The borders tend to be very porous, which facilitates these unique migration patterns. While many argue that smart cities with advanced digital infrastructures are best at supporting large populations and such migratory patterns, others argue that sustainable urbanization in Africa requires a plan that tailors to the African lifestyle and utilizes readily available resources.
For most Africans, their first home is their home village, and that's where they will be buried. So the city is a sort of a temporary location.
The African situation is unlike any other situation in the world. Will just any urban model be sufficient? Moving forward, the next logical question seems to be, should Africa urbanization projects be funded by foreign aid? In order to sustainably develop a megacity, what resources do you need, and how do you obtain these resources? While Africa is the fastest urbanizing continent in the world, a lack of resources could severely threaten sustainable development. One of the most controversial topics in sustainable development is how much or how little these developing cities should rely on foreign aid.
The institutional architecture needs to be really revised for the 21st century. In many ways, Africans need to be given more of a vote rather than to have, the outside world decide, okay, these are the projects we want to fund.
Within the sector of urban development, the World Bank invests an average of $5 billion in implementing lending projects on sustainable cities and communities every year. While business magnate Bill Gates argues that foreign aid is necessary for sustaining African civilizations, economist Dambisa Moyo argues that foreign aid is killing Africa.
If you look objectively at what aid has been able to do, you would never accuse it of creating dependency. Having children not die is not creating a dependency.
It can provide a Band-Aid solution, but it cannot deliver long-term growth. There are new jobs coming out of an aid model.
Can African cities move towards a more self-sustainable and independent economy? Or is foreign aid a long-term necessity for sustainable urbanization? This general discussion for or against foreign aid becomes more complicated when climate-driven migration forces people across borders with a different governance. To further analyze the situation, another critical question seems to be, what is the environmental trade-off in developing these African megacities to support millions of people? With Africa's cities rapidly expanding and welcoming millions of people, energy demands and pollution levels have skyrocketed. And without thorough urban planning and proper ways of monitoring greenhouse gas emissions, the urban Africa carbon budget will eventually explode. In 2018, Nigeria's total greenhouse gas emissions were 1.59 tons of carbon dioxide per capita, whereas the United States used around 18.44 tons of carbon dioxide per capita.
I often hear people say, because of climate, we just can't afford for everyone to live our lifestyles. And it's creating a two-tier global energy system with energy abundance for the rich and tiny solar lamps for Africans.
Limiting carbon usage in Western states could enable Africa to use more carbon in the short term, which decreases the risk of exploding the world's carbon budget. The challenge, however, is that Western countries are increasingly limiting their funding to only renewable energy sources, which forces the nations to develop with zero carbon. The traditions and history embedded in African life has created an interdependent culture that thrives on community and connection, something that is necessary for everyday life. So, why not design cities built on African lifestyle? Is it necessary to utilize Western models of what a smart city should look like? For a culture that was built on the rural lifestyle and agricultural success, should governing bodies look to design more ruralized cities?
I think that was a very artificial distinction we've had for centuries, that areas are urban, we think they're cities, and areas are rural, we think they're traditional and they're connected to agriculture. In thinking about African cities in the 21st century, we need to incorporate the rural into the urban. So we need to think very differently how we would organize these spaces.
Without a long-term plan for sustainable development, the African continent and the rest of the world will experience dire consequences. It is no longer if, but when millions of Africans are forced to move out of rural Africa, will these cities be able to support large populations? If we want to avoid a massive humanitarian crisis that threatens the entire global community, policymakers must open their eyes to the African continent, and new debates must be initiated to tackle this global issue with a more African solution.
I think my past self will be proud. I believe that all artwork is an autobiographical or a self-portrait. It has to come from the inside. My name is Edison Peñafiel. I am originally from Ecuador. I moved here in 2002 and overstayed my visa. I'm here now. I'm a US citizen. My idea was to focus on the general idea of migration rather than specific situations of migration throughout the world. So Mare Magnum consists of 14 different boats with 81 characters wearing a papier-mâché mask through this animation of a seascape. Boats navigate forever on a perpetual loop. It's a representation of the Mediterranean Sea. Mare Magnum is the old name that the Romans gave to the Mediterranean. There's a lot of play of words within this name. There's the idea of the Great Sea, but also an etymology of nightmare. Like mare becomes nightmare, but mare also becomes mother. So it's a play of concepts between the Great Mother, the Great Sea, and the Great Nightmare in these situations that I'm presenting. The work has many layers, and that's important to me because of all the symbolisms it can bring. and not only the layers, like the technical layers that happen in the production of the work, which are like more than 60 different layers to create this 12-channel installation. The layers of the mask, right? The meaning, the concept behind it, the idea of covering one's face, the idea of migration, the idea of adaptation. Personally, I think I have a lot of masks in different situations, with friends, with family, with institutions right now. I have chosen black and white because of the idea of timelessness. So I work a lot with the idea of history and the repetition of history. The piece being achromatic, it removes that idea of time. So it just becomes like a general idea of that event.
So I didn't want to go political at all, and the work ended up being political. So I guess it was my own experience of migrating and being undocumented for a period of time that created work about labor and about criticizing the powers, political, economical, religious. But little by little, it has been washing out that anger.
I work a lot with the subconscious, the music, the lullaby, as a way of other representation of that safe place where your mother tucked you in bed and sang you a lullaby. So that is them trying to reach that safeness, right? And I think this situation of combining these three elements of mare, which is the nightmare, the mother, and the sea, and the mother being that origin and trying to hold on to that idea of the motherland, maybe. Not only like the human mother, but the land as well.
My relationship with my mother is pretty good. She's elder already, so it's becoming. Gosh, she still lived in Ecuador, but she is kind of split because we are here and her relatives also out there, her brothers and sisters. So I see that struggle for her because she doesn't know where to be. I believe that there is this passing of information through different generations, and in the process of finding oneself through my artwork, but also through the stories of my relatives that I never met, and seeing myself in them, like figuring out why I do these things. I see that passing of information becomes the loop, right? Where we are doing the same thing over and over again until we decide not to do it anymore. This time for me is just being conscious of how this system works, but not only in the social realm, but also within generations, and that information that is passed on to the next one and the next one. It continues growing and adapting. No, it's not the end.
When God thought the world needed Mozart, he gave us Mozart. When God thought the world needed Beethoven, he gave us Beethoven. And then when God thought the world needed you, he gave us you.
Je peux vous le rendre, Seigneur, Seigneur, car avec les soldats.
First of all, you discover you have a voice. You need to start when you're old enough to be able to take a little bit of criticism about your voice and divorce that from a personal criticism. But it really has nothing to do with your person. And therefore, you know, like in my studio here, I have that sign, you are the gift. And what that means, essentially, it's not your voice, it's not how you sing, it's you. I was a symphonic musician, I was serious about it, and I really wanted to be a conductor. But when I was in college, I'd placed out of some English and some history, and I had the opportunity to have some electives, and I wanted to take some voice lessons. So I met Jean Preston, and she said, "Can you sing?" And I said, "Well, how do you like it?" You know, and I presented her two different ways of singing, and she, "You have to be a singer." It's all been such an adventure. It's all been a real dream come true. I had the opportunity to have an audition for the Metropolitan when a tenor on my agent's roster got sick. And as a consequence, he talked the Met administration into hearing this young baritone. They were like, "Well, we don't need to hear any baritones. We got plenty of baritones." And I got the call, and they were like, "Can you sing on Friday?" I was like, "I'll be there." And they said, "Well, can you come back in 7 days and sing on stage for Maestro Levine?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And so from "we don't need any baritones" to a week later, "Well, we're offering you a contract at the Metropolitan Opera." Let me get this picture, the black and white. The contract was to sing Jim Larkins in La Fanciulla del West. This guy is on stage for 10 minutes and he sings for 90 seconds. Now, to sing this role at the Metropolitan Opera, I had to cancel a Don Giovanni at the Vienna Kammeroper and a Trovatore, Count de Luna, in Klagenfurt, Austria. But I was delighted to do it because it was my dream to sing at the Met. And of course, that little opening led to my 20 years at the Met, and that was a dream come true. But of course, like any other artist, I always wanted more. What can I tell you? Some of the greatest experiences of my life were singing with Luciano Pavarotti, or working with Kiri Tikanawa, or Morella Freni in Bohème in Chicago, or singing in Renee Fleming's debut, or with Placido so many times. We did the Cyrano, but he conducted me in Butterfly, being on tour with the Met, meeting and dining with Arthur Miller, singing the world premiere of Bill Bolcom's A View from the Bridge.
You was always there, and now you're running, where?
It sounds so delightful and so exciting, and it is, but then there's the dark side too, you know, and that's the loneliness and the discipline. You're on the road away from your family, you know, that's just hard. That solitude and that is such a difficult part of the job. It would be hard enough if you had that support system, but ultimately you find yourself alone, you know. After the last clap, it's get ready for the next show. It's tough.
And take my advice, Father. Have a bath yourself once in a while.
In my old age, I fell in love, and I began, it just opened up a river of poetry for me. It's the most exciting, thrilling thing just to be able to just pour out of your soul and speak again. As a young singer, you want the opportunity to be heard. You know, you want to get up on the stage and say something. Well, I still feel like that. You know, I want people to hear this poetry. Remember, I'm the gift, right? You're the gift, I'm the gift. And it's like I'm determined to be heard. I will not go down quietly. Thank you, Dylan.
His first paycheck, what does he buy? New snappy suit, big bright tie, long pointy shoes, big band records. The dance I hate.
Show me from the top, listen. Shout out Harlem, man. Shout out A$AP Rocky, man. All in the building, man. What's good? Is that potato salad? Yo, listen. Niggas give me the cold shoulder, I can speak for myself. So I keep a hot waist and alligator the belt. Ain't got a belt with the holster. I ain't playing games, but got some little niggas who would do it, so I pass the controller. You can press the next out, triangle your nose. Pause your life if you squares, try to mess with my O's. Whoa, so cut the crap like shit barbers. Cause we really with the beef like cars of the gay fathers. Nigga, we get dollars, give them the bin baller. Exchange for them chains that's all shiny with thick water. I got back pains, neck heavy like whipped cream. I whip clean, and they all white. I whip cream and cop boards, and I draw a stick. I whip cream and cop cribs. I got more space than big jeans. Y'all sleeping on me. Explain why they got shit dreams. I'm alien. Got the laser gun with the big beam. Married to the money, my bitch green. No, I don't sit lean, but riding around the rockets like yeah, I mean y'all niggas weak. They thought I was goofy and all mouses. Double C my luggage and fill them with comb blouses. Y'all cop kush, my nigga, I cop houses and fill them with some Leo the Cap and some cold sprouses, nigga. Where we, Rocky, A$AP, Golf Boy, where we at, nigga, in Paris.
Walk about in this really windy village of ours. We've got nowhere to be. Hold my hand in this really windy village of ours, for it's a lovely day. It's our life in the future of the fourth of the leaves. It's unspoken, we've got nothing to hide. We both know in this future of the fourth of the leaves, when we look into our eyes, and we're warm and we're cozy together, and we're fine and we're perfect together. Maybe tomorrow, maybe tonight, we'll be together, feeling so right. On the mountainside, we live inside a cabin by a lake. At night we watch the stars. You've been holding a surprise about the future of the fourth of the leaves. And we're deep, we're expecting together, and we're fine and we're perfect together. And now I wonder if maybe tomorrow